Welcome to Hope Talks. I'm Dr. Charles Montorio-Archer, President and CEO at One Hope United. Hope Talks are a conversation between industry experts and thought leaders on issues pertaining to protecting children, sustaining families, and stabilizing communities. Today's guest is Brian Rosenberg, the founder of Gays with Kids, and our theme is advocating for the LGBTQ plus foster and adoptive parents. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. This has just been something that's been on my list to talk to you about, and I'm really glad to jump in and have a conversation with you today.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm just as happy to be here.
Okay, great. So let's start with, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be an adoptive parent and how you came to start Gays with Kids.
Sure. So I'm a husband and a father. Ferdinand, my husband, and I have been together almost 30 years, I'm embarrassed to say. And we have a family of 3 kids. We created our family through a combination of adoption and surrogacy. And I'm also very open about my HIV status. I've been HIV positive longer than I've been together with my husband. I launched Gays with Kids following the arrival of Levi, whom we got to bring home from the hospital. We got a call on the 3rd day of his life, and we got to bring him home on the 5th day of his life. Wow. And shortly after that, I had 2 epiphanies, I like to say. One is, I had come out, 15 years before Levi was born. And when I first came out, I did so in the big way. It was right when I was getting together with Ferdinand. I actually joined a speakers bureau, and I went out and talked about my path to being an open and proud gay HIV positive man. I actually told folks I was HIV positive before I told them I was gay, and which was a crazy path. And I've never met anyone else that has done that. But at any rate, shortly after I became a dad, I realized I was having to come out. I realized I was having to come out all over again, even though I'd done that so many years before. Wherever we went, right, was having to explain our family story. The pediatrician, the daycare, the parents of other babies at the daycare facility who would invite us to birthday parties or whatnot. Like, we're constantly having to say, no, Levi has 2 dads. There's not a mom in our family. Even to strangers who would stop us on the street all the time. And then the second sort of epiphany that I had was, we got a call about Levi's birth. As I said, when he was 3 days old, and we brought him home 2 days later. Well, my family was in Florida. My parents were in Florida, where they spend the winters. And my husband is from Holland, so his whole family was there. So we're living in New York City without any family. And I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna bring a newborn home. I panicked. I'm like, what do we know about this? So the first thing we did is we got to a big retail store and said, okay, it's gonna sound crazy, but in 2 days we're bringing home a baby boy. We know nothing and have nothing. And we, it was 4 hours later and we spent way too much money. But throughout our entire time there, I noticed that it didn't matter what it is we were looking at, toys, accessories, clothes, food. So much of that stuff had labels on them. The labels that said things like, made with love from moms, mommy tested, mommy approved, 4 babies from mommy. And I remember, as nervous as I was that we were going to be bringing home this baby, I looked at Ferd and said, we're not supposed to be buying this stuff. And so between that and realization that people presumed, the parenting industry at least presumed, that moms were solely responsible for raising their families, and the fact that I was having to deal with issues like coming out, I thought it would be great to connect with other gay men specifically who were dealing with similar issues, right? But we were living in Manhattan at the time, and there was nothing else going on there. But we, in addition to having Levi, we actually thought we were going to adopt a baby prior to Levi, and he was about 6 months old. And after about 3 months going back and forth with the birth mom, she decided she actually did not want to give up her baby. And so we thought, okay, I guess we're not going to become dads through adoption, which is why we started the surrogacy journey. And so Levi's got twin sisters who were born 17 months after him. So it wasn't until all the kids were out of diapers and eating solid food and going to daycare or school that I thought, you know what, I would still love to connect with other dads, right? And also, honestly, I also want to be able to share my experience. We grew our family through adoption, through surrogacy, and I'm HIV positive and became a biological dad. I felt like maybe it was so complicated and there were no resources. I felt like maybe I could help other people. And so I was surprised when, 5 years later, and there was still really nothing going on to help. So I said to my husband, you know what, I told him my idea. I said, let's just start a community where we help other people create and raise families. And we talk about what that's like. And that was the launch of Gays with Kids about 7 years ago, a little over 7 years ago.
It sounds fantastic, actually, the journey to the kids, the experience, but also the realization that in the space where you had your partner, you still felt alone, that there wasn't a bigger community for dads. So tell me a little bit about the mission and the vision for Gays with Kids, and then also, what has been the global impact of this, organization?
Sure. So my vision has been since day one is that it was important to me that we covered as many stories as possible. I wanted to cover the complete experience of our lives, of all the different queer men who were creating families and living as with their families. And so I always felt like my goal was to make sure that anyone who comes to our website, anyone who identifies as gay, bi, or trans dad, or wants to be a dad, comes to our site and feels welcome and represented and finally connected, regardless of where in the world that they live. And honestly, that continues to be the vision that leads us, leads our work today. And as a mission, it's really our mission was to help dads create families and then just help them navigate those families once they have them. I would say what we've done up until last year was sort of anecdotally sharing stories of creating families. And like we told that story about what went on through our adoption journey and our surrogacy journey, but we didn't get into the nitty gritty, right? Like the details, how it actually works, who you need for partners, what family building partners you need. And so that we launched in late last year, this whole becoming section of our website now that does just that. And our goal is that anyone who's considering parenthood, any queer man considering parenthood, comes to Gays with Kids, goes right to our becoming section, first finds out the paths that are typically available to them, what's involved in each journey, whether it's adoption, foster care, surrogacy, co-parenting, and then which family building partners they need and what to look for in those partners, how much it's going to cost, más o menos, how long it will take, et cetera. And so I'm really excited that we're now doing that as well.
It's really fantastic. So as you know, One Hope United does work with foster parents and adoptive parents. So I'll talk about both of those things simultaneously,
Sure.
because I think, fostering doesn't lead to adoption and adoption doesn't start with fostering, but it is very much connected. As you know, there are couples who have traditionally fostered and adopted children. And based on your last newsletter, it appears that there are some single parents or some singles who are now interested in forming their own family as a single person. What are you seeing in the queer community that is making people think about parenting, even if they're not partnered?
And it's crazy, right? Like when I was not only a kid, but when I was a young adult, I'm of a certain generation. Parenthood was really not an option. I knew of like two gay men who were out and proud gay men who then became dads. But for most of us, this was, of course, in the 90s, and we were, all in the AIDS, the worst of the AIDS crisis. And people weren't talking about the future because the future just involved death. So that's amazing to me that's an option. And now even like people say, hey, look it, I want to be a dad and I don't want to have to wait until I find a partner. That's happening in the heterosexual community too, right? Like people are saying my biological clock is ticking. I want to become a parent, and why should I have to wait to find the perfect partner if I can't find that person? So I think it's just because, part of the work that Gays with Kids does is we promote positive and accurate portrayals of our families. And we've done that since day one. We probably told, I don't know, 2,000 stories today of dads from around the world who are men become dads. And so I think people just started to see that, yeah, I can be a dad too. And while my love life's not great right now, I haven't found the perfect partner for the rest of my life. Well, that should stop me from realizing my dream of fatherhood. And we absolutely promote that. We love to share stories of single men become dads. I want to inspire them as well. But what I will say, if you're a single person, regardless of your sexual orientation or your whether or not your gender identity, I'm sorry, is what I meant to say. You do need to, as Hillary Clinton said, it does take a village to raise a child. And so the piece of advice I would have is just make sure you have your village ready. Honestly, as part of a couple, we need a village to help raise our kids. So I think that is, just more emphasis on making sure you have your village together, whether it's your family or close friends. A lot of us who are LGBTQ plus sort of create our own families. So that, as long as you've got your support system in place, go for it. There's no reason not to.
I think that there's a really great expression of love, however which way you want to express it, as a partnered person, as a single person, whatever your identity is. Adopting children or experiencing children in your life is really a place where I think love sits, and it's kind of the thing that, and looking at the site and learning more about Gays with Kids, that all of it is really a good expression of love. So I'm so happy that you're out there doing it for our community. At the flip side of all of this, there is dissenters about queerness. There are dissenters about queer people adopting children and all the other things that come along with it. There's 11 states across the country that have passed laws that explicitly allow taxpayer-funded child welfare agencies to discriminate against prospective foster and adoptive parents in our community. There's a case in the Supreme Court that will be decided this June that may well hold up constitutionally and allow other discriminatory laws to be imposed by other states. How do you think that this is going to affect foster and adoptive children first, and then the queer community second?
Sure, and we're following that very closely. In fact, our executive editor is a bit of an advocacy geek, and he loves that. So we'll be explaining that more to our community for folks who don't understand, because that's so incredibly important. So first and foremost, here's what I don't understand about that. There are 400,000 kids in the system.
Yep.
From newborns to 21. Like, shouldn't we just all agree that the most important thing is to get them into loving and safe forever families, or families just to watch over them, those who are not eligible for adoption? Like, I don't understand why that's not the only consideration that we have. So yeah, I am very concerned about this, because I just fear for these kids who, there's a lot of heterosexual couples when they go into adoption, et cetera, they want kids who look like them. Often, it's what I hear. Whereas, we're gay men, we can't make a kid ourselves. And so you find that most of, there are a lot more mixed race families within the LGBTQ community than there are in the heterosexual community. And so I'm concerned first and foremost for the kids, and I'm concerned for the the men who want to become dads through adoption and through foster care. And, why would we've told so many stories of dads who, oh my God, this one's got 10 kids, that one has 12 kids. Like, why would you want to stop that?
It really also, there was a moment in time, and it's still across the country, where, Black families can't adopt white children, and white children can't adopt Black children. Instead of just coming from a place that there are 400 kids that need a place, a home that they can be nurtured and valued and encouraged and inspired. And it's really disheartening when we see these things, that we currently are seeing around transgender children and what that's going to be like. So there's all of these things that the Supreme Court will eventually be dealing with, but I'm glad that you're tracking it and that your editor on your team is making sure that we're really.
Policy wants, yeah, no, absolutely. And I think big part of what we do with gay kids is it's just normalizing our family experiences. Look, I know we've changed hearts and minds.
Yes, you have.
And we do that just again by showing accurate, positive portrayals of our families. And so we're not the only ones doing that. But I hope at the end of the day that will have been enough of an impact to, if you don't believe in gay marriage, then don't marry someone of your same gender identity. Like, that should just be the end of it. I've seen a lot, since my time though, a lot of progress. It's a tremendous amount of progress, and so that does give me some hope. My husband and I, so he's from Holland, we had to leave the country soon after. I think Levi was like 2 months old, because Freud had never gotten full-time status here, and I couldn't sponsor him. And we had to make and he had been living here under a tourist visa basically for 2 years while we were doing all the work that needs to be done to become dads. And shortly after Levi was born, Ferg had to leave the country every 3 months just to get through immigration. And an immigration officer said, I see what you've been doing for the last couple of years. This is your last time in here. You will not be able to, next time you leave, you'll not be able to come back. I'm going to make a note in the system. And so we actually had to move out of the country, and we lived in Canada for 5 years because of that. So, and then we got married on our 20th anniversary while in Canada. 6 days later, the laws changed here. And then several months later, the laws changed even more, so we could get married anywhere in the country. So yes, it's been tremendous progress made, but we obviously still have places to go. And a lot of the issues today are centered and revolved around our ability to, or our legal rights to parent.
As a result of your work, what would you say to young gay men and young lesbian women and young trans people around, parenting and the possibility of it?
So interestingly enough, today studies have shown, in fact, I even did an anecdotal thing where I was in Miami Beach, and I just walked up to anyone I thought was less than 28. I did the same thing in Provincetown, and I asked them if they had thought about parenthood. Every single person said, yes, I know that parenthood is something I'm going to consider, or some said I will become a dad someday. And that was just shocking to me, because again, when I was 18 to 25, there were no one talking about that. And so I love the fact that I know that they're already looking at parenthood. They're already thinking that they're going to have to come to a decision about whether or not they want to become a parent. And so I love that. And what I say to them is, if it's in your dreams, if it's in your plans, go for it. Don't feel like you have to. We don't need more people who are not good parents to become parents. But absolutely don't let your sexual identity, your gender identity, see how old I am, I keep using the word. Don't let your gender identity stop you, because there's absolutely no reason to. And it's been proven that gay, lesbian, bi, trans, non-binary folks do just as good a job raising families as everyone else.
So my last question is, what gives you and Gays with Kids hope for the future?
That's a good question. So I'll go back to some things I've said already. Number one, just all the progress I've seen. I'm an HIV positive gay man, and I became a dad. And I got married. So I think that progress, knowing that there's more progress to be made, like I said, around family rights especially, but seeing that progress and living it gives me hope for the future. The other thing is just the fact that today's queer youth absolutely know that parenthood is something they're gonna consider when they're ready is just absolutely amazing to me. And the stories that we tell about closeted men living, in heterosexual relationships who finally find the courage to live authentic lives, and how happy they are afterwards also gives me hope that we never have to go in the closet. And regardless of whether you're gay, lesbian, bi, gender non-binary, whatever it is, that you can still be happy and live your authentic lives out and proud. And so the fact that to do that now gives me great hope for the future.
Well, Brian, on the heels of Foster Care Awareness Month and this conversation, we rarely have spaces where we talk about queer people fostering and adopting children. So I'm so glad that you were able to join me today. I thank you for your time, and look forward to having you come on maybe possibly after some of the Supreme Court stuff happens to talk further about those issues, which I think around advocacy on a local, national level, and even global level that we can work together. So thank you for your time.
That would be great. We welcome it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So that's the end of this episode of Hope Talks. I thank you all for watching. If you haven't followed us, look for us on all social media as One Hope United. And this recording of this episode will be on our YouTube channel. Until next time, I hope you find hope everywhere, every day. Thank you.